I have three special guests from the film House of Good and Evil. Director David Moon, writer Blu de Golyer, and Rachel Marie Lewis. How you guys and gals doing?
Hi. Hey, thanks for having me on.
That sounded gay.
Yeah.
Rachel, stop laughing.
What? We were all talking over each other for a second.
No, we weren't. Welcome to my show. I am a big fan, a big supporter of House of Good and Evil. Rachel, I want to tell you something. Your performance in this film was incredible.
Thank you.
No problem. This is one of these films that I mentioned in the review that it seems like a dime a dozen film. Now, when I say that, as far as the reviewer's end of it, there's a lot of haunted house this, haunted house that, found footage this, found footage that. But when I started watching this film, it's a small cast, so that makes the film a little more intense and interesting. You know, when you get a big cast, I guess here you get kind of lost in the shuffle. But the cast was small. It was you and your husband, and a tragedy happened to you and your husband, and he goes to buy his house, isolated in the woods. I love that part of it. And things start deteriorating two ways, your relationship with your husband and what you experience in the house. Now, your experiences with this film, if you don't mind telling listeners, your experiences of, and what you got out of it.
My experience, well, it was a lot of work. It was really nice shooting in Floyd because it was really nice to be able to sort of work without distractions because it is very much an isolated town. It was very, very tiring, but it was a great, great experience. Very physically taxing. Well, I found Blu. I saw a post for the role, and I sought Blu out because I thought I could play it. I thought I was right for it. And he ended up getting me into casting, and then I auditioned, and then I ended up getting the part. I think he sent me a text message and said, "Congratulations." And then I got it, and then, basically it was like, now bust your ass, pressure's on, so.
Yeah, and you did bust your ass, and it was very impressive. And for the listeners, Rachel Marie Lewis played a character of Maggie Conley, and in case you want to know. Blu, you're next. Now, one thing that I want to say thank you to is the Facebook message I got when you asked me about reviewing this film. I didn't know who you were exactly, and I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to watch House of Good and Evil.
Thank you for the opportunity to watch it. I mean, it's very daunting to have reviewers review your film, prior to it being out, and also just in general. So, you're always risking it, and you're sweating. And the fact that you do horror, we were really scared about it. I don't want to say not making the snuff because it's a good film. It's just basically not being horror gore enough. But then reading other reviews you've done that you appreciate the story, and I appreciate that as a writer.
No problem. As a matter of fact, I've gotten a film yesterday. I finally got a chance to watch it, review. My wife and I did. It's called Chill. And one thing about reviewing movies that really got me started in this business is no budget to really low budget films, to where that the special effects are not going to be excellent. You're going to see some CGI every now and then, and I appreciate films like that. I see it with a different eye than a lot of reviewers do. A lot of reviewers just want to be Howard Stern and bash this and bash that, and my theory is, why waste your time in bashing a film? I just don't review it. That's just my prerogative. But I've learned a lot in the last 3 years of all types of films. A lot of people think that horror reviewers, all they want to do is watch bloodfests. Not the case. There are some great... Now, this movie's labeled horror thriller. I would more call it a thriller than anything. But the point that I'm making is, it doesn't have to be horror for me to review a film. It's just, I like to have a wide variety. There's comedy horrors, there's thrillers, there's, all kinds. And like I said before, this film really surprised me because the ending especially. But how did you come across writing this story?
Honestly, I was stoned.
Rachel.
This answer.
I
ever suffer?
Yeah, I walk 7.5 miles every morning, and just do a lot of walking and thinking, and smoke some weed. And next thing I know, I was just trying to figure out what it was like to be a woman stuck in. It just evolved, I guess. But yeah, a lot of talking to myself, on my walks. But pretty much, this script has been 13, 14 drafts, so it's a lot different than how it started out. And Dave was there from the beginning, so he can tell you that this script has gone through so many different changes, so many different hands. So it's nice to see it to fruition,
Yeah, and now I want to ask you one question. I mean, it sounds like a dumb question, but what was your feeling after the movie was finally started and finally finished?
Okay.
It's a dumb question, but
No, it's not. I'm just trying.
I remember Sue giving him a really big hug.
Yeah.
As soon as we wrapped.
Yeah, that was big for me. My wife, from the beginning of this process, we couldn't have done it without her, and and in the town that we filmed in, I mean, we got so many things thrown at us as filmmakers that will make a film.
Right.
The mics that we used were designed by the people who designed the Avatar microphones, and they happen to be in this small town.
Oh wow!
So they let us use their mics at no cost, and that was like awesome.
Wow!
So a lot of things like that. But I think that's what. Back to your question, it's such. You wait 8 years or you struggle 8 years, and then that last year everything just comes together all at once, and you thought you were prepared for it, and you weren't. I've learned so much, working with Dave, working with Rachel, working, with a crew that I didn't know. And as a writer, I think you should know all aspects of the film machine to be a better writer, and I think this has helped me.
Excellent. Well, I just want to say congratulations again. I mean,
thank you.
When you watch this film, I don't know what the budget is, and I don't care to know what the budget is. I mean, I can find out from IMDb if it's there, but it doesn't really matter. But the way when you watch the film has this top of the edge look. You know what I mean? I think what really go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. That's Dave. Dave. Again, he does a lot of studio stuff, and I mean, I'll let him tell you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
But one thing I will say real quick before I get to David is, one of the things about this film when I started watching it is I'm a big fan of woods horror, woods this, and I thought what's one of the most amazing parts of this movie was the scenery. I mean, with her and her husband going out to find a spot for the cell phone, and then she goes out. But the scenery alone really wrapped up this movie as in a package to really be able to feel the outside. If that sounds stupid, you can just feel it, what I mean. It's like it's real, which it was real, of course. But
and as you notice in the progression of the movie, it starts off bright and sunny, and then as it gets darker throughout the movie, you start to see the fog rolling in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's less color. When we were shooting it was very green, very beautiful. But during color correction, I was like, you know what? I don't want that. I wanted to sort of feel a little lifeless. You know what I mean? I wanted to pull the greens out and bring a little bit more of the yellows in, as if the greens were dying and stuff. But absolutely, the location was absolutely amazing, and I think within the 8 years of this movie trying to just get its foot started, I noticed the hardest part of the whole production aspect of it within that time was finding the perfect house. And, just hence the title, House of Good and Evil, and it was really hard to find that perfect house.
Right.
And even this house that we were shooting in, it was just a challenge within itself as well, because it was a giant. It was an old school?
Yeah, it was an old school, and the guy who owns it was actually building an airplane in it. He uses it. He was using it as a work. What do you call it? he was building an airplane. I mean, like, pretty much, it sums it up. There's wings and, a cockpit we had to move, and all these giant metal presses.
All by hand.
We had to build a false wall, and then the fake. We had to build a fireplace, basically. But we had to do a lot of stuff to it. But it had 2 front doors, and it was very from the outside. We knew it right away. It had no porch. We got that built by some of the contractor in that town, and at no cost.
Wow.
So we were lucky, but the homeowner has a new porch. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it was something else, that house. When we saw it, I was like, wow. And that hedge took, that is in front, took like 80 years to grow. So.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty cool.
Now, David, before we get started with you, but there's one thing that I want to mention that I've heard your name before, David Moon, but of course I didn't see it. I said it wrong in the review. Sorry about that, but it never clicked. But you mentioned to me about an actor that I'm friends with, Andrew Roth. I said, you know what? Andrew did mention his name, and it's a small world, because not only that you have a connection with Andrew Roth in Inspiration, I also have another tie-in with Sharif Salama with you guys as well. It's just weird how small world it is. The independent market is amazing, because there's usually, when you meet somebody that you really like, it's funny how it always connects with somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's how we all get work. It's word of mouth. It's networking, and it's just based on recommendations from other people. They're like, oh, this guy's great. You should give him a call, and then everyone hits it off, and then you start the next project. It's great.
Yeah, it's like Sharif. I didn't know him at all, and then Andrew lives in Long Island, New York, and he came down to Reading down here, about an hour away from my house. And he asked me to come up to do an interview, and then he had Sharif and the gang come up, and that's the first time I met Sharif, and the very first time I laid eyes on Sharif. He is such a cool, laid-back dude. It was just a fun experience, a great experience. He showed me how to set it all up, and I have a habit of leaning over, and he would push me back up. It's my first time on camera, and it was a great experience, and he made it easy. But then we also met again in almost over a year and a half later up in Long Island, New York, when we shot the opening scene for Dakota. He was there also, give me advice and help me out too. So Sharif is a good dude. So, I'm glad that, being raw in a business and to have people like that that's willing to help you and guide you. That includes Andrew as well. So I'm very thankful, for the opportunity.
They're both great guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't speak any bad things about them.
Well, so David, I'm about to get to you. You already spoke, but you are the director of this film. And as far as a director, a movie is basically your baby. I mean, you treat it like your baby. And a writer too, and an actress too. But when the film was finally finished, and how many reviewers has seen this film besides festivals? Do you remember offhand?
6, I believe.
Yeah.
And then I can imagine the suspense of wondering what they're going to say. Am I correct?
It is pretty scary, and just like what Blue was saying earlier,
right?
Because it's not the horror that we're talking about within the subgenre of gore or whatever. If people are expecting that, our biggest fear was, will the horror reviewers accept it as a movie within that genre or the subgenre, as you're saying, as far as it being a psychological thriller,
right? And
to our surprise, it has gotten good reviews, so I'm definitely thankful for that.
All right. So, what was I don't want to put your brain on overdrive, but what was the common denominator between all the reviews? Do you remember anything particular that you thought maybe they wouldn't like it as much, but they do?
Well, the ending, obviously, everybody loves.
Yeah.
And it's a tragic love story, and a lot of viewers that I've read actually catch that, and they actually feel for the character, and that's some damn good acting if you can feel for the character and
fantastic job.
Be sad at the end of it,
Yeah. Well, one thing I will mention, there's a character in this movie that I just fell in love with. And you know what I'm going to say because I mentioned it last week. Mrs. Anderson.
Yeah.
Marietta March. Is it? Marietta March?
Marietta. She was in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The 2003 and the 2006. She played Luda May.
Right. And she's just an remarkable woman. I mean, he's going to kill me. I'm sorry, I shouldn't get lines out.
Originally, we had Tippi Hedren attached to that role, and then 3 days before she was supposed to come out, she was doing all these press junkets for the Alfred Hitchcock bio, the girl.
Yeah.
When you're 82 years old, you can't really overdo it, and she overdid it, and she ended up, and not, admitted to the hospital temporarily in L.A. So we had to think quick, and Marietta, fortunately, was available, and we lucked out there. We also had Terrence Evans attached to the project, and he was also in.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of horror fans will know his face,
yep.
But he had a health issue last minute, and he was bummed. But it worked out in the end, surprisingly. I lost a lot of hair in the process.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have an independent film, and you can never predict what's going to happen in the last minute. But then again, that also shows the passion, the strength, and the willpower to keep moving. So that's a good sign.
And when you're that far into the production, you can't stop anyway. So
right.
And there was no phone reception up there, so I had to stand on this one spot at the corner of this road. And it was just crazy because the guy who I'll get to that later, but I had a shotgun pulled on me at some point in the shooting from one of the locals. Yeah. So that wasn't. But basically, I was on the phone the whole time. Just basically trying to run things, and even though I hated it and I was miserable, it was necessary to be done.
Right.
If you want a job done right, you better volunteer for it yourself. And I had to wear a lot of hats. That's the thing I'd do differently next time is have more producers on the actual set to work.
To take some of the burden off.
Yeah, Dave had a lot of
his. To say about Marietta though, that was wonderful to have her on board was that she knew the story inside and out. I mean, in the short time that we had her come flying out and everything, she knew the story inside and out. The subtext behind all her lines. Even when I had her and Jordan improvise, I needed some voiceovers of them fighting behind the walls. And she was fighting in character. I mean, I was like, you could just fight about anything you want. It doesn't really matter because I'm not going to really hear the words. But then they were fighting in character, and they were fighting about the story and this and that. And I was like, well, this is actually good stuff. I could actually use it now. So you could actually hear the words that they're talking about, what they were fighting about. But that wasn't the original intent. I just wanted to hear just, murmurs behind the wall. But
right. Yeah, Jordan Rhodes, I thought was... for the time that you've seen him, he has that really creepy look. Just the way he did in that movie was just fantastic.
He was great too. He was absolutely amazing. And there were times, he was like, "Hey, how do you want me to deliver this line?" And he would just say the line in like two different ways, and I'm like, the first one is great. Go with your gut because you're the seasoned actor. How to do anything, but it was just within the delivery. And then even the first scene where we do see him, we hardly see him. Like, it was intended where we can't see his face. But, I just told him to take his time, take control of the scene, totally eyeball Rachel up and down, just objectify this woman like you just want to, nail her, basically. Just put that creepy factor within all of that. And he just did it. And, it was hard not to not see its face in that scene. I really had his face in. But I still kept it dark enough to keep it mysterious and scary. But he was doing a lot of good stuff in that scene.
Well, the chemistry from what I see in this film worked. I mean, there wasn't. It's some films you can tell that if it's rushed, the chemistry is a little off. But this film was just laid out perfectly. I mean, it's just a brilliant film. I mean, I can say it again and again and again. You know, I really enjoyed this film. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Rachel, again, you know, the performance that you did, you made it so believable. You know, it's just an amazing, you know, me being a young actor, not a young actor, but young actor in the business, watching your performance is like a school. I mean, I'm actually learning to see. I mean, it's one thing to memorize a script, it's another to perform that script. You know what I mean? And I'm learning that now. When you watch movies and you're not in this business, a lot of actresses like you and actors make it look so damn easy. You know what I mean? But it's a lot of work. So anybody out there who thinks acting is so damn easy, you're a fool. Because it's not.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with them.
It's not.
It's all on your shoulders.
I have to be honest, I'm starting to lose a little bit of reception, but I got bits and pieces of that. So.
Uh-oh. Well, hopefully you'll be able to
play it back later.
Yeah, she can play it back and listen to it. So, any stories, background stories while the shoot of this film that's very interesting for listeners to hear?
Well, I always love talking about the butterfly that was sadly cut from the film. Yeah, Dave. What's up with that? There was one take we did, and this part's not even in the film, but the morning after, you know, Chris and I have the fight and he goes to bed drinking, there's sort of a shot where I come out on the porch and walk down the steps and then walk off to the truck. We actually, the funny thing is we actually taped it twice, and the first time they were resetting, and there was a butterfly, just beautiful big blue butterfly, just sitting on the railing. And Dave was like, just roll. There's a butterfly in the frame. Just go, because they wanted to get it. And then the battery died, and we lost the whole take. And everyone was really sad, and we're like, okay, let's just be sad and, you know, brush this off and do another take. And then in the next take, they said action, and halfway down the stairs, the butterfly flew into frame, on my finger. If you've seen the film, so you sort of know what's happening. This is right after, you know, before getting the dolly, after discovering Chris, it was so appropriately placed in the story. And we sort of had this moment, the butterfly and I, and then it flew off. But it was really, really amazing. I know, it's like a classically trained butterfly, right?
Yeah, well, hey. That's an experience that you'll never forget. Remember that.
Yeah, it was amazing. I still haven't seen it, but, you know.
I did send that to you, didn't I? No.
No, you didn't. You told me you threw it away.
Yeah, I did. Well, from the movie I did. Anyway, that was a nice scene, but unfortunately we had to cut it out for time purposes. But the interesting part of that too was I thought about it at that moment. You know, my wife always says whenever she sees a butterfly flying around, she always says that's her grandmother coming back to visit her and stuff. And so I had that nice little moment of that too when I was watching it, symbolically what that butterfly meant. And then I was like, oh, that's nice, but without giving away too much, I can't say more.
Right.
But anyhow, there was a lot of symbolism in this movie, though. A lot of hints. I gave away a lot of hints throughout the movie. And I think that was the trickiest part of the whole entire movie is kind of slow playing the audience before the big reveal at the end, but enough to give away a little bit at a time as things are progressing and trying to just tell you, like, hey, something's a little strange. not exactly what you think it might be, you know. So that was the biggest challenge, but I think we pulled it off.
Yeah.
You think, Scott?
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Now, where we shot, one good story is there's a lot of moonshine where we filmed this movie, and there's all sorts of different flavors, but we certainly dabbled in the local moonshine industry, and it helped get us through it. That's for sure.
I highly recommend apple pie.
Apple pie moonshine.
Apple pie moonshine.
You know what? I went to Georgia. I'm from Georgia. I was in Georgia for the holidays, and I found a bar there that serves flavored moonshine, and their apple pie. They had apple pie. Did not compare to Floyd at all.
Wow.
They make it in the old stills still, you know.
Like a TV show, right? What's that called? Moonshiners?
Oh, Shiners. That's actually, I think, in the same, like one county over.
That's what I thought.
But yeah, like that movie they did about what's the one, the moonshining movie that came out recently.
Oh yeah.
The really
Lawless.
Yeah, Lawless. That was
Yeah.
actually supposed to have taken place where we filmed our movie, but they actually filmed that in Georgia. But and that's one thing that you know my segue to my point is this community. You're a filmmaker. You've probably seen this. It's so hard to get permits to film a movie sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It took an hour from making a phone call, and the guy brought over the paperwork, did all the paperwork for the permits to shoot wherever we needed to shoot. An hour later, he came to the house, dropped off an hour later, we had our permits to shoot in this community. And the opening scene where the car, the truck driving down, that cost $300 to do that scene. For the permits and all the extras, and it was 200 of that or 100 of that was pizza. So what I'm saying is the whole town came out. We had an army of people that really supported this film, and I think that is something a lot of filmmakers don't really tap into enough. And if you have a community that will back you and help you with everything you need, it actually brings commerce to that community, but they're going to be more apt to bend over backwards for you, and they did that. Wow. And that's what I'm saying. The quality of this film, it was shot beautifully. We couldn't have done a lot of things we accomplished without the people of that community of Floyd, Virginia. So a lot of great stories of people coming out and helping, and it was weird. It's like, when you see an Amish build a church in a day, that's how these people work. It was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, I'm in the Amish community, so I know about that.
Yeah, it was in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Now, do you have a story that you mentioned earlier about a shotgun?
Yeah. We were.
Should we tell this one?
That was actually me.
Oh yeah, my bus.
Get off the phone. You're ruining my take.
Yeah. The guy was shooting, and we were in the middle of a take, and people do love when films come, but also you have to be careful you're not a burden on that environment. And we tried very, very hard to not be an issue with the neighbors. And when I say neighbors, they're miles apart. It's not like,
right.
Yeah.
So anyway, Dave's shooting a scene, and we hear shotguns going off at this neighbor guy, and he's a veteran, a disabled veteran, and he suffers from PTSD, and it's something you have to kind of do delicately. We couldn't exactly say, hey, you need to stop shooting. But what happened is, prior to that, is we share a road with this guy who pulled a shotgun out, and he felt that he wasn't getting access to his road, and we were basically keeping him from his property. Now that wasn't the case, but maybe we were disruptive to his quiet lifestyle. So what happened was he starts hearing the shooting, and I go over to investigate, and I've been around guns before, and I just don't like being around them. And he basically pointed the gun at me, and as I got closer, and I said, "I'll blow your fucking head off," pardon my language. And next thing I know, our PA is running behind me, and I had to tell him, the PA, to stop, just calm down, walk slowly. And I managed to talk the guy down with getting the gun out of my face, and I managed to make a bet with him that I could hit that target. And so that's how we got the gun away from him. And next thing you know, I had to kind of communicate with him, talk to him, and calm him down. And next thing you know, we're shooting his rifle at milk bottles. So.
He was a sweetheart of a guy. I mean, he came over the following day with a cooler full of drinks and said, hey guys, enjoy these drinks on me and stuff. And and we had him visit set and hang out and stuff. So
yeah. Sometimes it happens. I mean, it happens in every profession where people have their own privacy and they feel threatened no matter what the meanings are. But it usually works out in the end.
Right.
Yeah, it cost me a quart of firewood though. I bought him because he heats his house. It's way up in the Appalachian Mountains. He heats his house with firewood. So I bought a quart of firewood, and I pretty much kept us from getting shot from that day forward. So that helped.
Every little bit helps, I guess, right?
The barter system,
Well, is there anything else you guys want to mention before we go?
No, I think we covered a lot of the grounds.
Covered a lot, yeah.
Challenges, recasting at the last minute, shotguns,
butterflies.
But we will. Like I told you prior, we just signed a distribution deal for North America, so we'll let everybody know what's going on with that in the coming weeks. But,
fantastic! I was glad to hear that. I mean,
thank you.
No problem. This movie is going to be successful. I can feel it. I know it. There are people out there that like psychological thrillers with a touch of horror, and but listeners, don't make the assumption that I did before you watch this. Don't go into it thinking that's a typical haunted house, because it's definitely not. And then when you get to the end, you're going to say, what the hell? Fantastic. You're going to love it. So, spoken by your reviewer, I guess.
Thank you, Scott.
No problem. Rachel, Blue, and David, thanks for coming on. Keep up the great work. I will do my end and keep promoting this fantastic gem. So, again, thanks for your time this Sunday morning. Well, Sunday afternoon here, but morning there. So thanks again.
Thanks so much.
Take care of yourselves.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us on.
No problem. And I'll get this thing edited up sometime today.
All right.
Thank you very much. Take care. We'll see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Hey, bye-bye.